Here's a little song for starters. Being gay in the Mormon church is just like eating oatmeal when it's cold. So being gay in the Mormon church actually isn't as hard as people think it is. And that's not something that I've always felt. I grew up in the Mormon church, and I've always had very strong convictions, and I still do. And I'm also married to a man. So when people meet me and they meet my spouse, they usually are really surprised that, number one, that we go to church and that we're still very involved in our spiritual convictions. But it was obviously, it's been a journey. So I grew up in Utah. I went through my whole life never really acknowledging my feelings, my homosexual tendencies. And it wasn't until probably a year after I came home from my LDS mission in Russia that I finally, just certain events happened and I kind of had to acknowledge those feelings. A guy started flirting with me, and I realized what he was doing, and I really liked it. So, and then, certain things happened, and eventually we dated, and it was just so liberating to me. It was amazing. And I didn't feel like I was being deluded or deceived. I just felt like this very deep and kind of precious part of me was finally being acknowledged, that I had, not consciously suppressed all those years. I think it was, now looking back, I can see that, since I was 6, I had, tendencies. But that experience of finally beginning to accept myself as a whole was one of the most integral and important changes I started to make in my life. And then, of course, with that followed, many questions and a lot of painful growth spurts, I guess you could call them. But, I guess it had to start somewhere. And it's definitely not over. I have a lot of questions, just like, any member of any religion should have a lot of questions. And that's why, we have a long journey and so many wonderful opportunities to be close with God and to seek Him and get to know His plan and what He wants for us. The place that I'm at now is actually really unexpected. I went through a lot of heartache, a lot of fear of what my family would think of me and society and school and my church leaders and friends, of course, blah, blah, blah. Everybody goes through all of that. But what was the most difficult thing for me is I wanted so badly to be able to hold on to my relationship with God and my desire to serve Him and to testify of Jesus Christ. And I also had these feelings that were genuine love for a man. And I don't know how, but somehow it's come together and really beautifully too. One thing that I think is tricky, Jeffrey and I live in Provo, and we find ourselves judging people sometimes. Well, we've let me rephrase that. One of our challenges has been overcoming the tendency to judge people for judging gays, especially in the culture where we live, in the environment. And what we found is that when we let go of that and we just allow people to react how they're going to react without preconceived notions or, our predictions of how people are going to respond, things actually are usually really quite pleasant. Our families are pretty open-minded. We both had a few relatives here and there kind of react a little bit harshly, but for the most part, we have a lot of love and support. The thing that is most important to us is to exude love to everybody around us. If we're not really big gay activists. We don't go to parades and conferences and things like that. But, once in a while we'll hop online and we'll read blogs and journals and, letters to the editor in certain newspapers. And sometimes we'll be really surprised about, people's, what we would call people's closed-minded opinions about gays and how people view homosexuality as a complete conflict and contradiction to Jesus Christ and his teachings. Sometimes we'll read those things and we'll be really, we'll think, they're not really seeing everything. They have a very narrow scope. But we find the greatest peace and we find the greatest sense of acceptance in our surroundings when we allow people to have their own views and opinions, and we, let go of the need to judge other people for maybe not seeing things the way we see them. And of course, we don't know everything either. We're missing a lot too. But that's part of the journey of life. That's why God sent us here, to figure those things out. So Jeffrey and I, right now we live in Provo. Jeff goes to school. And our life is, it's pretty simple. We work, we study, we pray. We've tried really hard to make our home a place where people can come and just be themselves. It's not a party house at all, but it's a place where people can come and feel accepted. And we're really happy with that. We also treasure family and love to spend time with our loved ones. And we also really enjoy going to church on Sunday. And people all the time, one of their biggest questions is, how do you do that? And we actually, people are pretty nice to us at church. The ward that we live in right now, we just moved there and haven't gotten to know anybody because it's kind of brand new surroundings. But in previous wards where we've attended, people have been very accepting. One man in a Highland ward came up to us, and it was, we don't hold hands in church or anything. We're very respectful of people around us, but he made it very clear that they were so thrilled to have us there, and we really appreciated that. So Jeffrey and I actually really enjoy going to church, which is kind of surprising to a lot of people. But developing ourselves spiritually is at the top of our priority list. And that's one of the things that holds us together so well, is we feel that we're very blessed to be a couple with similar spiritual standards and similar values. And when we go to church, it's all about the experience of, singing praises to the Lord, praying as a group, and in experiencing the faith and the spiritual energy of those around us, and, bringing our best spiritual, I guess you could call them vibes. But we really enjoy it. And of course, studying the gospel, learning from Christ how to treat people, how we're supposed to treat the Lord, how we serve him. That's of utmost importance to us, and that's why we go. We feel like a fair amount of associates that we have who are gay and LDS feel that they have to choose one or the other. And that's definitely a conflict that I've gone through. But I don't feel that at all. It's not easy. It would definitely be easier, of course, to be, a typical heterosexual couple with children, etc. But, we feel like we're doing the best we can with the many blessings that we've been given in the time that God allows us. And we're really happy and content with that. And one thing that is very important to me is to make it clear that I don't feel like I'm settling in life. I feel like I have been given some really amazing opportunities to take challenges that conflict and torment people, that rip families apart, that make people question themselves and their worth, and especially whether or not they belong in God's sight. I feel like I've been given an opportunity to take all of those things and do something good with it. And, of course, it's difficult, and of course, there are so many things to learn. And Jeffrey and I know that our path in life isn't going to be easy all the time. Right, so far we've probably been pretty lucky. We've met the right people, and where we've had rough patches, we've been blessed with the patience and temperament to be able to step back and look at the big picture and deal with things accordingly. But we know that there will be some really rocky things down the line. We want to have children, and we want to teach our children Mormon values, and there's going to be a lot of brainstorming and counseling required in order to make that successful. But we're not scared about that, though. I think we've learned pretty well to not be afraid. I've had many moments where I had a lot of fear. How did I go from being in moments of fear to marrying the man of my dreams and being happy in the church? Let me just say, the key element to making that happen was learning to accept myself exactly as I am. Imperfections, weaknesses, the whole works, and strengths and good character qualities, etc. But it's an ongoing process, and I'm so glad that I have the rest of my life to continue it. But in just the last 3 years, since I started dating that first guy, I was really forced to question myself and to look at myself and to ask myself how God sees me, and why does he love me, and does he still love me, and should I love myself? And thanks to a wonderful mother who's taught me well, and thanks to good friends and wise church counselors and good school counselors, and especially thanks to a Father in heaven who answers prayers, I've come to an understanding. At least I've started to come to an understanding of who I am and what I'm worth and what I'm capable of. And ultimately that culminates to a new self-acceptance. So if there were people to ask me, what advice I would give? No, I don't give advice. That's not a good way to put it. If someone were to ask me what I did to be able to be happy with my spirituality and my sexuality, I would have to say it was just learning to accept myself and to allow God to love me as freely as he wants to, which is very freely.